help recover this idea that the Beatitudes bring out the counterintuitive nature in a culture that does nothing but award winners, and that means by numbers, by prestige, by status, social media following. How do we do that when we feel that we're in danger of being left behind and considered, I think, one of the most, I don't want to say egregious sins toward a pastor, but being deemed irrelevant? How do we do that?
Yeah, I think it has to do with our identity in Christ. A great example of this is Dietrich Bonhoeffer. When he established the Confessing Church Seminary at Finkelwalde, he used the Sermon on the Mount as his curriculum. And he emphasized the importance of confessing sins to one another. The theology of the cross was central, and the Beatitudes became the lens by which he understood that. Now, Bonhoeffer received a lot of flack for that. Karl Barth, for example, accused him of starting a Catholic monastery of sorts because of its rigor. Yeah, because of the disciplines of faith that were part of that school. And here was Bonhoeffer's response. This cultural moment in which we live has such irresistible temptations. Nazism and the use of media come at us with such force that we must go as deep as we possibly can if we're going to stand firm in the face of that temptation. I believe we're in that kind of moment now. You mentioned media, where there are these values. It's not Nazism, but it's another kind of idolatry. It's an idolatry of the self that tempts me in 100 different ways every day to find glory and splendor in the projection of my own image instead of the image of Christ. And the way to deal with that, I think Bonhoeffer got right, is to go as deeply as we can, and the Beatitudes get us there. They're like a plowshare that carves into our heart to reveal all the illicit attachments. And once we get perspective on that idolatry, then by God's grace, the resources that he provides in word and spirit, we can deal with those idols.
Okay. There are so many different questions that I have coming from that. When you talk about this idea of, the Beatitudes bringing this idea of hope, you actually had said that hope is a form of poverty, which really kind of made me turn my head. Why is hope a form of poverty?
Yeah, because hope believes the promise of God. It looks forward in anticipation of what God will do according to his promise, but it doesn't see it. It doesn't apprehend it yet in a tangible way. Abraham looked forward to the city whose maker and builder was God. He wandered through the land of promise. That's hope. And it's a firm hope. Why? Because it's grounded in God's promise. And yet it's a form of poverty in as much as we don't yet apprehend it, and we're having to rely on God. Someone has called it a dominion of dependence. We trust God, we depend on him, we rely on him, and we do so in hope. And so I think that's the spirit that Jesus has in view when he describes the one who is poor. It's not relying on one's own abilities. It is rather being honest that we are bereft of those resources of spirit, and we're wholly dependent on God for them.